I'm also a writer, as you mentioned. I love writing, but to me, the most exciting part is to be involved in the production of what we do. So, of course, there is creativity, but in my opinion, creativity is something that you can use not only to create a story, but also to do something different.
Hi, I'm Adam Freeman. This is Comic Industry Insiders, a weekly podcast where we talk to the people behind the scenes of the comic book industry, the people who keep comics going. They are the ones that you maybe have never seen in a masthead, but have been involved in every step of building the comics that you love. And we're going to try and get to know some of the tips and tricks and learnings that they have come across in order to help your business or career in comics. My guest this week is one of those people that if you don't pay really close attention, you would never realize how close he has been to so many of the comics that you enjoy. Davide Caci. Did I get that name right?
I think the pronunciation is not that good. It's Caci, but
Caci?
but
Okay.
but you were able to pronounce well the first name, which is very impressive to me.
I practiced Davide. All right, so Davide Caci is one of the owners of Studio Arancia, which is an artistic studio that helps bring artists and creatives of all type to the books that you read, and he works with Star Comics also in Italy. And I can tell you, I'm really looking forward to getting to know him further. I've had the joy to work with Davide on a project over the last couple of years, and seeing the professionalism and drive for creativity that he and his studio mates all bring has been inspiring, and it has me grateful that I get to continue to work with him. So, Davide, thank you for taking the time today. It's especially the time zone change. It's always a challenge, right?
Thank you very much for you inviting me. I'm a follower of your podcast, and I find the idea of interviewing people who are behind the scenes very very smart. So thank you.
Oh,
It's a pleasure to be there.
well, thank you. It's always I always figure that nobody is really watching and or listening to this. So every time somebody tells me they are, it's like a nice little gift. So thank you. It always makes my day. Um, so let's start off with I I always like to start off getting to know somebody a little bit better, and maybe not so much about your work. But I think tell us about an artist named Mirka, because I think that's really a great place to start with you, right?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Thank you for asking it. Basically, I've started my career with Merck and Dolfo about 15 years ago, more or less, and it's fun because when we met the first time, both of us we were just kind of wannabe. She was a wannabe artist. I was a wannabe professional in comics, and little by little we started building our careers together. We used to work together since the very beginning, and I served and I still serve as an agent, manager, and whatever to her since her very first project. So I saw her very brilliant career, let me say, from scratch to date. And I must say, but I'm pretty sure we'll have the chance to talk about that later. Uh, I learned a lot thanks to Mirka because, first of all, well, from a professional and a personal point of view, she's a very professional talent, and it's a pleasure working with her. and that's the point. Then, just to make it clear, she's also my wife, but it's totally unrelated to what I said so far.
Uh-huh.
The point is also that following her path, her career, I've learned a lot of things about this industry, and I had the chance also to practice, which is not the best thing to say, but she's not there, so that's okay. Uh, Following her, I could practice also my skills, and I built some models. I was then able to reuse on other creators and other situations.
This is I would say anybody who has followed or I'm unsurprisingly very nerdy about the back end of almost every industry, right? And so one of the things that I'm really fascinated with are the music agents. They are the unsung heroes of the music industry, and invariably they are just that. They meet some talent and they say, you are incredibly talented. I want to make sure that that all the things that need to be taken care of for you get taken care of for you, so you can be growing as an artist. And so it is no shock to me that you found one and that you two became so close. Mirka Andolfo obviously is an incredibly talented artist on books like Paprika and all of those incredible covers. She's I don't know. I'm when I just learned this about you, legitimately last week, and we've been working together for a couple of years now. Uh, tell me about Studio Arancia. How many artists, how many creators do you work with? What sort of projects? Give me the pitch.
Okay, so basically, Studio Arancia is a media company working in producing comics. We used to do that mainly on work for hire, but in the past 5 years, more or less, we also started a new business unit to develop our own IPs. To date, we work mainly on the American and the French market, which are, I would say, the two biggest one, except for Japan, of course. And we are very proud to work with almost all the big publishers and many of the independent ones. So we provide very, a very different variety of services because we can provide just writers, artists, colorists, or sometimes, pretty often, to be honest, we also can provide the whole package, which means that often a publisher call us to ask for an artist, or they call us to ask for a product. So we start from scratch to the PDF, ready to go into the print. Um, I forgot to mention. Sorry, I wanted to give this kind of disclaimer. First of all, I'm very sorry. Despite my long experience on the American market, my English is very bad. So forgive me if sometimes my language or my pronunciation, even worse, are not the best.
No apologies necessary. If you want to be good at American English, you have to boldly go forward and not care that you're saying something wrong, and because it will adapt around you. That's the nature of English.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so to come back to your question, to date we work with more than 200 professionals. Most of them are talents, including writers, artists, colorists, letterists, editors, etc. And one of the things we really love is building bridges between Europe and United States. That's why very often we put together in the same project, or we propose, if it's a work for hire, to put together on a single project maybe an American writer with an European artist, or vice versa. or and that's in my opinion very interesting because you can take the both or the best, sorry, of both cultures. And just to well, it's very complicated to me to say what Arancia does because it's a lot. And Arancia started as a company. Next year we're going to celebrate our 15th anniversary. Uh, I wasn't there. I'm not one of the founders. I just came in 4 years later. So I just celebrated my 11th year here at the company. And at the very beginning, Arancia used to be just a service company providing colors, and that's it. What I noticed when I started working with them was that they had a huge potential from the artistic point of view, but they were very bad in commercial and in finding job, scouting, and basically in business development, which is incidentally one of the not so many things I think I can do. So that's when we decided to partner, and we started working together. And from then, the company today, well, I could say it's kind of a group because we have three different companies. But I do prefer the word ecosystem because I like it more, honestly. And we have Arancia, which is the core, still the main company. And some people says we are an agency, but I totally disagree because we are not an agency. I mean, I don't have anything against agencies. It's a great job, but we don't act as an agency. We're not agents because what we try to do is to provide services to both our customers, so the publishers in general, and our talents. And I would say that both of them are our customers
Right.
because we work for both of them. And our mission is trying to develop the career of a talent. And we follow step by step all the works we do. So basically, we have our own editors, and before we send out some pages to a publisher, to the official editor, these pages went already through a very severe, very strong quality control on our end, which allows us to take the hand of the talent and helping them to provide the best they can do, or at least trying to provide the best they can do. And that's the core. Today, as I mentioned, we work with a lot of big publishers. Even if I must say our largest client is always the Walt Disney Company, but we work with many other publishers, either in Europe and in the United States. Then we built a second business unit that's called the Orangery, which is the unit focused on the IPs we own and we develop. So basically, the Orangery owns the IPs that Arancia develops for
Got
themselves.
you. Right.
And that's something more recent, of course, and that's one of the examples I could make about Mirka because this idea came to us thanks to Mirka because basically she used to be just an artist on work for hire, working at Marvel, at DC, at many publishers. Then she started doing her own projects, and at the very beginning she partnered with a publisher in Italy But then little by little, she realized, and we realized that we could do everything by our own because we had the structure, we had the contacts, we had the know-how, and so basically, she is even today our most important talent, uh, also for the orangery. And we built a model with her, and we follow that, even producing other stuff. I could name a lot. Today we have about 25 to 30 IPs already out, and I could name, for instance, I don't know. We partnered with Mark Russell, the comic writer,
Yeah.
putting him together with Roberto Meli, an amazing Italian artist, and we built a limited series called Traveling to Mars, which was nominated to Eisner Awards last year, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry if I flex. And that's the model we are trying to develop. And we started developing thanks to Mirka. The third, but last but not least, I would say about 2 years ago, more or less, we opened the third branch of our ecosystem, which is called Comic Sketch Art Europe. So basically, we partnered with Comic Sketch Art. For those who are not aware of, Comic Sketch Art is basically the largest agent handler for conventions, for original arts, signatures, appearances in general for comics talents. They have more than 160 talents, more or less, including small names like Frank Miller, Scott Snyder, G.F. Jones, Mark Silvestri, Mark Brooks, and you, well,
I've
a lot.
never
Greg
half of those
Capullo.
names. I'll have to look them up
Yeah,
later. Yeah, I
yeah,
totally understand. Yeah.
yeah.
And people who are, don't know how the, the the space that agents tend to hold, I would say that it's been my experience that it goes everywhere from, like a musical agent would be. So if you want to do business, you need to contact this person who is in charge of this other person's career. Or like, even as you said, like when you go to a convention and there's a whole block of tables with artists that behind it, and they all have similar banners and similar tablecloths, and there's somebody else walking behind them taking your money, that's because there's an agent like Comic Sketch Art, or Felix, or um, any of a number of other artists, I mean, and other agents, but they really are the largest one. They're huge. And so your company is an offshoot, is a partner with them. Is that how that works?
Yeah, we partner with them, basically creating Comic Sketch Art Europe. So a sister company of Comic Sketch Art. We're using to do, I would say, two different kind of business. The first one is to bring this kind of companies also in Europe, because I mean, we have a couple in the UK, but in Europe, because of our culture and our history, this kind of business is not developed yet, or at least it's far, far away from the United States. Uh, and so basically, when American creators signed by Comic Sketch Art comes to Europe, of course, they need a help, and also the opposite path. So basically, European talents who needs an an handler, who needs an agent for conventions, either in Europe or in the States. And we already, I mean, it's called Europe, but we already started also signing Asian artists, and bringing artists also to Asian conventions like in Japan. So basically, and to me, it's very important, this kind of business. Of course, it's something I'm honored about because, I mean, if you have the chance to partner with a big one, it means that they trust you, which is great, of course. But also, it's very important to me because it allows us to uh, be involved in different part of the professional life of a talent, because very often we sign talents, so we already work with on publishing, for instance. So we bring them to the American market to draw a book for a publisher, and maybe we send them also as agents for the conventions, and so we can help them to build their professional figure in the market.
That's really wonderful work, and it sounds to me like you have the similar affliction that I do of, oh yeah, I could do that too. I could do that too, even though these things all feel like they're connected, but in many ways they had to use a different part of your brain, and you're always switching, right? It's but I
Yeah.
understand. I understand how that develops very well. I'd love to take this moment though to kind of go backwards a little bit. Tell
Yes.
us about young Davide. Where do you discover comics? Where does this become really important for you? But even before then, where are you from? What do your folks do, as we would say?
Okay. Well, you have to know, as you know, I was born in Italy, and during my generation, I would say 99% of kids grew up thanks to one comic, which is called Topolino. And Topolino basically is a magazine. It still exists, but of course, in the past, it was huge, bigger
Right.
than today. And basically, it's the Disney magazine featuring, containing Disney comics with Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, etc., and the rest of the gangs, I would say. So mice, ducks, etc. And I literally learned how to read thanks to these comics. And like me, if you ask this question to 10 people, 100 people of my generation, probably 90 of them or even more will say the same. Because
Yeah.
at that moment, that was what kids used to read in Italy. Uh, and it was a huge part of my childhood. Uh, to be honest, Topolino entered my house because my elder sister already read it, and even my grandfather used to read Topolino. So it was something that could bring all the generations together at that moment, at that historical moment. Of course, that was the starting point. Then I started little by little, naturally exploring other Italian comics, like the books published by Sergio Bonelli, which used to be the largest Italian publisher. And these ones were also a big part of my reading experience. Then I kept going also with some other Italian comics, and then when I got older, I came into comics and manga, of course, like I would say like everyone else. And my first manga was Saint Seiya, and it's I still adore this IP, and I'm very proud to be part of the publishing house who historically published Saint Seiya in Italy. So it's it's a huge honor, and so that was the starting point. Then what happened to the Davide the Reader? I started attending comic conventions just as fan, trying to understand the atmosphere, what was going on the comic world. And I started little by little contributing also on the comic scene in my own way. I started writing for magazines. I published a couple of books about comics. I mean, it's been
How old
quite
were you when you
enjoyable.
did that? When what is that in the timeline for you? How old were you when you published those
Okay,
books?
well, it's fun. Let me say that I've always hated sitting still. Okay, so
You've
I
always
wrote
hated
my
what?
first. Say it again.
You've always hated what?
Okay, I hope it's correct. Sitting still.
Oh, sitting still. Yes. Okay,
Okay.
great. Yes, yes. You did
uh,
great.
I wrote my first book. I already used to work for magazines and write articles, etc. But I wrote my first book while I was still in my final year of high school. So I was 18, and it was a critical and sociological analysis of animated sitcoms.
Okay.
Uh, Basically, it was from the days of the Flintstones to the present.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And to be honest, writing this for about 1 year, I slept no more than 4 hours per night. And strangely enough, I felt great because, I mean, I was young.
You were 18. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
sleep is not necessary when you're 18 as
yeah,
opposed to now where, if I don't get a full night's sleep, forget it. It's the day's over. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that is wonderful. Well, so you have been if I go through the list of the job titles I've seen, for you, I see journalist, translator, editor, writer, COO, president, and now CEO. Where, if you had to refine your passion for our medium and the business behind our medium, where do you think that comes from? Like, what is that drive for you, other than your hatred of sitting still and your love of comics going back to Donald Duck? Like, what keeps you going on that
That's a
path?
very good question, very smart question. I'm not sure the reply would be smart enough, but I try.
I doubt it.
Uh,
I think you're probably just based on our interactions, you're gonna say that, and then you're gonna say something way smarter, but you're gonna feel nervous about pronouncing it. So go
Thank you. Uh,
ahead.
I don't think I'm able to say where this comes from. What I can say is that even when I was a student, I realized little by little that for me it wasn't enough to read comics to be um, an audience for something about entertainment. I Even if I was very very young, I wanted to understand what was the mechanic behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and that's how I started. And even today, basically, it's what move me still. So, I mean, it's something very difficult to describe. But what I would say is that I knew I started studying law here in Italy. Then I left because the industry knocked on my door, and I started working full time in comics. But even if I was studying law, and I was very interested in that, it was a passion for me, but it was very very less compared to the passion for the idea of working on the entertainment world, sorry, on comics, on publishing. So I I wanted. I mean, I'm also a writer, as you mentioned. I love writing, but to me, the most exciting part is to be involved in the production of what we do. So, of course, there is creativity, but in my opinion, creativity is something that you can use not only to create a story, but also to do something different. Um, I don't know if it makes sense. Oh, by the way, you don't know because it's not noted in my profile, but the very first time I had when I got hired to a publisher when I was 19 was the
Uh-huh.
foreign rights manager. So I started selling rights.
What? You started selling rights at
Yes, sir.
19? Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, considering the number of people I know who handle that job, like they don't tend to get there until they've had a full career because you really need to understand the mechanics of how things work. The idea that you
Yeah,
started there, that's you just
yeah,
leapfrogged over all of us, didn't you, Davide? That's incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then to try to complete the thought, when I'm asked to talk about my career path, I try always to emphasize on how unconventional it has been, because I didn't follow a linear route. Uh, in fact, a lot of the jobs I've had, and I still have, I kind of invented them along the way.
Yeah.
And the same goes with for the situations, because I found myself in, and also my company itself. When when I talk about my company, when I talk about Arancia, I often say that we don't really have competitors. Not because we're the best. I mean, I think we're pretty good, but I wouldn't say we're the best. But we don't have competitors because no one does what we do.
Yeah.
So basically, this is something. This is an approach. This is a. I don't know if it's clear to you, but I often use. It's pretty common in Italian, a Latin expression to say this is my forma mentis, which means the shape of my mind. Let me translate like that. And
Formamentus? Am I getting that right?
forma mentis, exactly. Yeah.
Formamentus. Okay.
Yeah, and just to give you an example, every year I have the pleasure and the honor to attend a course on editorial translation that was built by a very good friend of mine, Daniele Brolli, who is a fantastic editor, one of the best Italian translators and writers. And he asked me to teach for the very final seminar of this course, because he had a brilliant idea, in my opinion. After the students spent all the course learning how to be good translator, so how to translate, how to face all the problems of a translator, how to format their job, etc. Uh, I came in, I come in and shake things up, because I share with them all the things they might not have considered, showing them the possibilities they have because of their translation skills. What I
Right.
usually say to them, it's all about lateral thinking. And I try to apply this model to my entire professional life.
That's really interesting that you you bring that up. I think most people think of translating as essentially something a machine could do, right? It is something, this word means this in your language. So therefore, if I just take all those words, I can shift them over. What I find interesting is I just heard this statistic about why AI is why AI has taken hold in the English language in a way that it has not in other even Romance languages, and it's because English is so much more efficient in the word choices and that sort of thing. That apparently it's something like 2.5 times harder to do large language models in a language like Spanish than it is in English, just because of the differences in the language. So you're having to make those choices as a translator. I think it's fascinating for those of us like me who are just stupid Americans who only know one language. It is fascinating to me to hear that, and I'm curious to know what makes a good translator.
That's a very smart question. In my opinion, there isn't a certain recipe, but what I personally look for in a translator when I have to hire someone to translate is, first of all, someone that knows very well not only the language you are translating from, but even better, the language you are translating to. Because understanding a language is, I mean, I was saying easy, but it's not true. It's not easy. But it's not that complicated. Whereas giving the best shot to give the same atmosphere, give the same feelings in the language you are translating to, it's, in my opinion, the most important part. Because you mentioned the AI. Basically, an AI usually probably is even better. Well, not probably is even better than a human being in understanding. Understanding, of course, they don't. AI doesn't understand, but you know what I
Right.
mean.
Yes, I understood. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what's the point that makes the difference between AI and human? That me as a human, I know the language I'm translating to, and so I know what I need to do to adapt. And that's why, just to give you an example of my job, for what I do, once again, sorry, I'm naming Murky again, but I swear it's not because she's my wife. She
You
was
should be promoting her. You've been her agent this long. You're supposed to be promoting Mirka, whether she's your wife or not.
when we had to bring our first creator-owned comics to America, a natural back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, uh, we had to face the problem. Okay, we need to translate from Italian to English. And I'm pretty sure that American industry of comics has not a lot of people able to read Italian, etc. I'm pretty sure that today almost nobody can do that in the US. So we decided to split. We decided to have a very good Italian translator to make a literal translation. And then we hired an American writer, my friend Steve Orlando, who is a very good writer,
Yes, he is.
to do
Yeah.
the localization of that. Because even one of the best Italian translators, and I think that the one we choose is a very good translator, wouldn't be good enough to localize, to
Right.
make the perfect feelings of. He wouldn't be able to make Merca's tone of voice in American Merca's tone of voice.
Right. Yeah.
And in that case, we had to split because of the situation. Italian is a nice language, but how many people speaks Italian in the world? Very few.
Yeah.
But that's the point. So for me, a translator has to understand very well both the languages, has to be very flexible, and has to learn very well the situation. Just to leave another example, not about Merca this time, about Steve. We brought 4 years ago a very nice, in my opinion, Italian graphic novel written and illustrated by Carmine Di Giandomenico, who's a Marvel and DC stunning artist,
Yeah.
together with another creator called Francesco Colafella. Basically, it was a story set in the 40s, and it's a story about Italian immigrants in the US. It's a biographical story of the grand grandfather of one of the creators. I was pretty confident that the translator did a very good job, and definitely he did. But
Yeah.
then I had a lot of conversation and also a couple of arguments with Steve because basically he insisted to change some words
Oh,
because
interesting.
of today's sensibility in people.
Mm,
Just to give
right,
you an example, at that time, Italian were often called using the N word.
right, right.
Steve told us, convinced us, and I decided to follow him because that was the reason why I hired him, because he knew what I can't understand as a European guy. He
Yeah,
explained to us that using that word wasn't a good idea because even if it's historical accurate, the feeling of the whole
right.
book would have been very different and very bad. And
Yeah,
even the best Italian translator couldn't understand that. Whereas an American, of course, was able to see that, explain it to us, it convinced me to do that. Even if
yeah.
my first reply was no way, we'll keep that. But then he explained to me, and I mean, he did a
I
very good
think
job.
rightfully so. That sounds like you made the right call, and it's good that he stood his ground with you, because that would have been, even if you're right, even if you can convince people that it is historically accurate and that that it reflects the time, the thinking of the time, it's still going to be a distraction for the audience in a way that you're not looking for that to be the focus of that audience, right? That's very true. Can you talk a moment? You talked about idiom and atmosphere and that sort of thing when talking about translations. Can you talk about the difference in story structure? We come from different storytelling backgrounds for the most part. I mean, Americans tend to come from European roots as far as storytelling goes, but you also deal with a lot of translations in and out of Asia, as you said, and other places. Have you, as a writer, have you noticed those themes that shift, like maybe how a story is paced or how the story itself is structured? um has any of that been, is that something that, yeah, you have to, maybe it's not something you have to contend with as a translator, but is that something that informs you as a writer?
Well, I must say, maybe as a writer by myself, I reflected a lot on these differences because I had the chance. I was lucky enough, as you mentioned, to be involved in very different kind of comics, in very different kind of products, either as a translator or whatever. As a writer, I wrote very different kind of comics because I wrote Italian classic comics, so the black and white small format. I wrote French comics. I wrote American comics, and I would say every kind of comics has different structure, different situations, different uh, characteristics, also from the technique point of view. Uh, but I would say that today, what I see and what I think is probably the smartest way to act as a writer. If you see the most successful comics, you can't say if they're American or Italian or French or whatever. They are international. They are reflected for an international audience. And I mean, let's take The Walking Dead, probably one of the most successful comics of the last few years. If you see The Walking Dead from the graphic point of view, you wouldn't say it's a classic American comics. So, in my
That's
opinion,
interesting. Yeah, he did. I mean, there was a departure. Walking Dead was a departure from the comics during that time, and obviously the most obvious being that it was in black and white. But it was the story structure itself was very different from what was being said at that time. I can see it. Yeah, it is. There is a little bit of European
Yeah,
overlay to that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And then, for instance, I won't name the creator because I already did too many times. But when people read Marquez books, they in the US readers tells her they like her comics because they are so European. In Europe, people tell her they like her comics because they are so American. And both of them are right in my opinion, because you can find the structure of more close to American comics, so shorter chapters, pretty compressed rhythm of storytelling, etc., but with a touch of European aesthetics. The the only big difference I think today is very important to notice, as for the structure, it's not between American comics or French or Italian. I see three big categories of comics today. The Western ones, including American, French, etc.
Mhm.
Then the manga, because of course manga, uh, you as a reader, you can see the difference from the design point of view, from the type of story, the genre, etc. But the very big difference is that Western narration, Western storytelling is divided into three acts, and we took that from the Greek
Right.
ancient origins, whereas Japanese storytelling, and in manga in particular, is divided into four acts, and that's the technique called Kisho Tenketsu. So
Okay.
that's a very big point, very different point, and you see that. You see, if you take the time to reflect on a story of an American comic or a French comic, you see the three acts, the three parts. You can divide the story into three parts. And usually we have the starting point, where we have a climax to the top, and then the solution. Whereas if you do the same with Japanese manga, you will find there are four acts, and they are different from ours, because basically the third act on a Japanese comic, on a Japanese manga, brings to the real cliffhanger,
Brings the what?
to a real cliffhanger.
Oh, right, 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 right. Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm going to have to do some more research on that because that is I have not. That's the first time I've heard that, and I'm looking forward to understanding more. I also realized I was having so much fun. I haven't looked at my watch, and we have a much more limited window than we normally do for this show. I don't know how that happened, but I want to make sure that we're honoring that. Why don't you tell us? So this will be going out sometime probably during the month of November. We haven't locked that in. Can you tell us about a certain manga project you have coming up?
Definitely, yes. In particular, I would say that we are going, or when when this video will be out, we just announced a big project I worked on in the last 2 years and a half, more or less, and I'm very proud about, because today I don't think anyone would be surprised if I say that manga are the most the highest sales worldwide. I mean, in Europe,
Yeah.
in the United States, manga are the best sellers today. And in Europe, we used to have kind of a, how to say that, we as a readers, we seem to be not interested in mangas produced not in Japan, even if we had very good mangaka, so
Very
manga
true.
artists, manga writers,
Yeah.
even in Europe. Little by little, that perception changed in the past years, and in particular, countries like France, Germany, Spain started a wave I call global manga. So they started producing manga not produced by Japanese creators, but by European creators. And Italy, as usual, is pretty late because we are very late in updating. We are very late in having in appreciating new things. But we finally came, and as Star Comics, the publisher where I work, and you mentioned at the beginning, is the largest manga publisher in Italy. We publish Dragon Ball, One Piece, Demon Slayer, you can name it. We started 2 years and a half ago a project with another three big European publishers, which are Planeta from Spain, Cana from France and Belgium, and Ultraverse from Germany. And we finally decided it was the time to create the first European manga magazine. So we announced Manga Issue. That's the first European manga magazine. So a classic Japanese style magazine,
Wow.
like Shonen Jump, but produced in Europe. And it's going to be published starting from next year in the four largest markets of Europe, so Italy, Spain, France and Belgium, and Germany, at the same time.
That's incredible. That's we had Morgan Perry on, I would say a couple months ago. We were talking about how the difference in U.S. markets and Japanese markets, and how really one of the big dividing lines is those anthology magazines that are so integral to getting new audiences in Japan, and how that that's incredible. That's incredible that you're going to be able to do that. It's going to properly done. That will explode the readership, right? That's incredible. Wonderful. Good for you. That sounds like so much fun.
Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
As I said, I only just realized normally we have a pretty big block of time, and I had about probably another 2 hours worth of questions for you, but I want to be real respectful of the time that you've made for this, and the time that we have today. So, is there anything we haven't really covered that you wanted to make sure that we did? And I think probably, like, what do you see as, actually, no, let's step back. Let's talk about how you see the connection between European, Japanese markets and American markets, right? The three big producers of comics. What, if anything, is there a risk? Is there a threat to the readership of comics that would affect all three of those markets, or reflect or affect the relationship between those markets? Do you see anything on the horizon that scares you about our ability to grow?
Well, maybe yes. I'm not sure if I'm scared. I'm excited, but I'm not sure if I'm scared because what I see today is that the comics as we knew it, in my opinion, is not that interesting anymore to young readers. It's a cultural situation, but it's also linked to the industry because why Japanese are so good? Because their industry work freaking well. because
Correct.
if they do a comic and that's a successful comic, a manga, of course, they can have animation, they can have merch, and all this stuff are inside the daily life of many people. In my
Right.
opinion, that's the big difference we have today between us Western and them. And little by little, I, I mean, I could be scared because they are very good in doing that. They did for so many years, and the success of manga should learn us, teach us a lesson. But the point is that why am I excited? Because I think little by little we are going to learn that. If you see, I just mentioned manga as an example of a Eastern comic, but I should also have mentioned webtoons. So,
Sure. Right.
uh, because these two are part of the future of the medium comic. And if you see today, of course, I take the big ones. We have solo leveling in Korea, but we have Lore Olympus in the United States. So, uh, what makes me thrilled and not too scared is that probably it's gonna take a long time, but we as an industry probably will be able to learn the lesson from what our Asian partners do and try to do bringing more value because I mean different voices brings more value always.
Amen. Amen.
So if we will be able to replicate that kind of model, but not just copying that because copycats are not a good things, uh, but bringing our own sensibility, our own voice, I think will succeed from the commercial point of view, from the business point of view, but also from the cultural point of view. And I my final thought is okay. Maybe in 10 years, a kid won't be so interested in having an Italian comic, reading an Italian comic, or maybe even reading a classic American comic, superhero stuff. But maybe a kid could be interested in reading a digital scrolling webtoon produced in Korea or in Italy or in the United States. That's the point. Because if you see, My Hero Academia is American superheroes in manga.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's when I look at, especially this year at New York Comic Con, I don't know about you, what your impressions were. One, the incredible, overwhelming traffic that we saw in that artist alley that you spent most of your time was jaw dropping. And two, the number of people that are coming into comics for the first time through things like webtoons and are excited about comics and discovering more. I don't know. It has me optimistic for what we all do. Anyway, sorry. That is my TED Talk. Thank you so much for the time, Davide. As I said, I've been looking forward to this for quite a while because getting to know you has been a wonderful feature of the work that we're doing right now. Where can people find out more about Star Comics, Studio Arancia, Davide, Mirka? Where can they find out more?
Well, about Merke is easy. She's pretty good at social media, so Instagram, X, even Facebook.
Yeah.
About me, I'm very bad in self promotion, so usually the LinkedIn is probably the only social platform I use a little bit. On the other
Yep.
ones, I just lurk. I see cute cats pictures and something like that. Arancia, we're finally building a website because working mainly B2B brought us not to have a strong presence online, but we need to. So both Arancia and Star Comics website would be probably the best solution.
I know that you and I had a conversation not too long ago where we both were like, yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years and I just built a website. I just built this pitch deck for the first time. Yeah. Anyway, to that end, you can now check out pranadm.com and see our brand new website. Thank you, Anne, wherever you are, for helping us build that. And please do check us out all over the social platforms. I'm Adam Freeman. That is how I spell it. And sometimes I spell it Adam Bang Freeman. And you can find me wherever good social media is sold.